Hi, my name is Corte Suber, and this is my final presentation on the company that I've worked for this semester called AlonTree. AlonTree was founded by a man named Alon Kaplan, who is a stroke hero, as they like to call him, instead of victims. He developed this company because he saw that there was a severe gap between when a person has experienced a stroke and is going through the recovery process, and when that recovery process ends, and what happens after you leave that rehabilitation center or service, or if you have an in-home service, that person or that party leaves. It left kind of a gray area and a window for stroke victims to, or heroes, to go back or revert back to some of the earlier stages of how their stroke affected them, with the lack of mobility, the loss of memory in their speech. So he wanted to devise these equipment and these rehabilitation processes to continue that process of getting back to a sense of normalcy before a hero has experienced their stroke. And so what he has done is created over 80 plus prototypes for this desired program and this desired task that he has placed upon himself. And the overall idea and the goal is to improve their memory, their speech and thinking, the general stroke recovery, and to allow the motor skills to relearn and reteach themselves post that traumatic brain injury. Because a lot of the times with the strokes, most people completely lose that sense of mobility, and that functionality of their brain is completely shut off for either ever or for an extended period of time. So what a lot of stroke heroes have to do is teach their brain to do the simple and daily task of either lifting their hand up, pointing, or picking up an item. So it's like a thought of if you're in a traffic jam and and you can see it in front of you and there's no way of you actually going through it, but there is an alternative and there's a detour to get all the way around it and get to the point of access. So that's what a lot of these stroke victims have to do. They have to be able to find a detour of the roadblock that is either will always be there for the rest of the remainder of their lifespan, or that will eventually go away post years and years of stroke recovery. So he's developed these products to help aid in some of that relearning and reteaching of some of those motor skills. And the overall ideology that he has is to empower and inspire disabled people and engage them in a lifelong process of self-recovery. And through my workings and speaking with him, it is truly remarkable to see the growth from where he was at to where he currently is. And I truly believe that this company that he has started is only on the precipice of being something that's truly great and foundational, and that we will see later in the future. So the overall idea of AlonTree in their project proposal was to aid in building and maintaining comprehensive reporting structure, because what they had was kind of a starter idea and a starter way of approaching data analytics, but they didn't really have a focus or a direction or knowledge of what to do and how to use it. So their idea was to implore someone to help them along and create some foundational pieces that they can use for the many years to come and the current process that they have. They currently had a website, and so what they really wanted to do is make sure that with this new data analytics that they have provided, to kind of make sure any of those flaws get ironed out and make sure that the website that they currently have is running at peak functionality and performance. And they needed to understand and realize, with this data analytics approach, what key factors do they need to utilize, track, and evaluate to make sure that the company is continuing to thrive and prosper and grow into the future. So in taking all of that and assessing our first meeting, we had a data interpretation of understanding what system that they use, which is the Google Analytics framework that is used for all of the Google housing products. This system is all encompassing, and it has a vast amount of data and information reports that a company can draw from. And so when I first initially looked at it, I truly understood how the company got lost, because data analytics really provides you everything, but it's up to the company and the user to narrow that focus and condense some of that information into things that are really usable and understandable to that company alone. So they've done a beautiful job of blanketing everything, but it's up to the company to narrow that focus down. And that's really where my expertise and internship kind of thrived and matriculated to this point. So my goal initially was to understand that framework, understand how the reports, how the data retrieval is coming in, and so that I know what data I'm looking at, where it's going, and how to create some of those reports and what those reports are going to look like. And so what I did was I understood the data and how it was flowing through the many views that it has, whether it be the test view or the master view. And so what I did was make sure that I created some preliminary reports to identify what data is in there and what is the company is currently doing with the framework that it currently has set up. And so when I looked at some of those things, I looked at, what was the popular items, what are the kind of junk material that you would see on data analytics. So that led me to the segmentation, which is basically a filterization of just the reporting structure within Google Analytics. Now there is an additional filter that is main on the data side that comes in, and what is advised is to set up the segmentation first to understand, okay, if I take this aspect out, like what we did with us, we took out the China information because there's a lot of it wasn't useful information. It just seemed like a lot of just ad tracking and just a lot of spam. So what we could do was take that stuff out and realize what is our percentage of that takeout. So how much of that data that we took out affects the overall encompassing data. And we realized that it was only at a 2 to 3% impact. So when we realized that that segmentation is very minimal and that we could possibly just get rid of it on the data side level, we took it to the administrative filter and we completely removed all of that China data so that we weren't even bringing that in to begin with. So we had a basically clean slate of non-China related data and had more of a centralized view of what really is our purchases, our impacts, and our page views and who is interacting with our site. So that is just kind of the approach that we kind of took when it comes to that data interpretation, by creating some of those preliminary reports to identify the data that we had and that segmentation to kind of preset some of the filters that we were going to make. And then from there, the main focus, especially for a small business of this sort, is the goal foundations. So with the goals within the company or the Google Analytics system, the goals track how a user interacts with your site and what you're particularly looking for from that user. So what we developed was the purchases and the product inquiry sites, because we just want to know if they're looking at our products and they're interested, and also how many of those interested parties within the users are making purchases on those products. So having those goal foundations set up will really help track and understand some of the key factors that will really benefit the company within the long run. Now, the data analytics portion is obviously just comes from the customer reporting to utilize on a daily to weekly updates. So what we have done initially was I created 2 big generalized reports for the page views and the referrals, because those seem to be the main areas of concern for us as a company. But as we got through it and the weeks grew on, it just became too much. There was too much information to really narrow the focus down to understand what we were really looking at. So what was asked upon me by Nick Rambo, who was my project sponsor, was to condense some of this information so that it could really hit some highlights and really have a strong foundational backbone, so that when someone goes in there, they know exactly what they're looking at and their eyes don't get distracted by all the bells and whistles. Because the preliminary reports that I created before had a lot of bells and whistles. And I appreciate it from the project sponsor to help me narrow down that focus, because it really is encompassing to make sure that they understand what they're looking at and that they can use it on a day-to-day basis. So from those page views, I created something that was more accessible to the user by the access site report, which basically is how they get to the site, whether through the source or the medium, and how long they're on that site, duration, those different periods, and then just the page views for the day of the week, just in case they have a new product coming on the line. They know what day is the most popular views for their website, so they can either release it on that day or the day before, so they then know that they're going to get that traffic, they're going to get those views in. And then from those reporting structures, we kind of built it upon the dashboards to get an overall review of exactly what we wanted to see and what we want to look at. So we see the traffic flows and the kind of the bounce information, which is bounce information is just how long is whether or not someone is going to look at that one page and then immediately go off the site, or if they're going to go from this page to that page or this page. So we really wanted to make sure that bounce rate was low, because if that bounce rate is high, it just means that they're on one page and immediately leaving. So, and we just kind of want to see if that flow kind of corresponds to what we're seeing on the bounce rate information. So it's just nice to understand what the custom reports are, and then applying that to the dashboards to make an overall encompassing view of what we're going to really look at, and then allowing those goal informations along a dashboard view to see all the different types of goals that we're looking at really helps really open the eyes to what we really need to focus on and what we need to grow upon our websites. So that was really key, and it was a great back and forth between the project sponsor, Nick Rambo, and also Alon Kaplan as well. Now, the challenges were very minimal. The only big challenge for me that was very cumbersome and challenging was to transfer information from one view to another. A lot of the report structures that I developed was on the test side of the view, because I didn't want to impact some of the main data information. But there's not really a simple way outside of to transfer the dashboards from the test view to the master view. It is fairly simple for the custom reports, because there's a lot of just simple points and clicks. So you can hit the three dots on the side, and then it'll show you whether or not to share, and that usually will share among the other members that has access to the data. But with the dashboards, you have to save it in an alternative location and then import just that framework, and then from that framework it'll pull the rest of the data in. So it's a lot of backwards stuff. But with the newer updates and things like that, that seemed like it would be a realizable fix, and that will be something that we'll work towards the future. Now, like I said, Google Analytics Systems always has changes in frameworks, so it's just a constant battle just to keep updated with a lot of different things. The youthfulness of the company was great, so because they had great ideas, great opportunities for growth, but sometimes that can get a little confusing because you don't know what they really want to look at. So you kind of have to put yourself in their shoes to see, okay, if I was in their shoes, what would I really want? So that was just an interesting view, but it was helpful for me to know if I'm a small business, what would I want to see? And then it was sad that we had COVID concerns, so we couldn't really meet face to face, but Zoom really helped out a lot, and I really got a good feel and understanding of who they are as a company and who they are as people. And I truly believe that this company has great things in their future. And lastly, as far as my recommendations, we noticed that within our reports and our custom dashboards that a lot of people really like the stories that Alon created upon the site. They provide beautiful insights about how his growth has evolved and emerged from the point that he was at to where he is now. And so what my suggestion was to link those stories to their products, because a lot of times they'll read through that entire story, but then they'll leave. So what we wanted to do was make sure that that story applied to a product. So it's leading them from understanding, okay, he did this and he went through all that, but he used this product. So go check out this product, inquiry this product, lead to a purchase, lead to some additional revenue. So understanding that linkage and developing that was something that we have initially started currently, and that we have set up some goals to track some of that information, see if that is really impactful and is growing towards the future. And then just the normal accumulation of data for intended investors. I don't know if investors are interested, but I know if you take a second to read through some of their stories and the information, the products that they have, I know investors will be extremely excited to see this company grow and thrive. And it's all really up to just building more data and bringing all that information, that revenue, and applying the linkages, which will really truly help this company. So I thank you for listening, and I hope you all have a great day.